Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm Grae Wilder. I'm an undergraduate researcher studying human-wildlife coexistence here in Nepal for a summer, and I am so excited to get started on this video because when you think about wildlife careers, I think most people picture zookeepers, biologists, researchers, and I certainly do too when I think about that. But there are a lot of careers out there that are very very hidden in terms of like the popularity within the mainstream media of conservation and biology, in fact. And so as a person who taught a class at UC Berkeley called Conservation in Action, I realized that a lot of the undergraduates that I was, talking to were really stuck on some of these like mainstream careers within conservation, and they didn't really realize that there are a lot of different opportunities out there. And I think it's really important to talk about these because no matter what you're interested in, I think, maybe I'm biased because I love conservation, but I think there is something for everyone within protecting our earth and protecting the animals that live on it. So again, without much more delay, let's get into it right away. So the first job I wanted to talk about today is wildlife forensic scientist. So these people who study wildlife forensics are usually detectives that use science to solve wildlife crimes. So wildlife crimes include stuff like poaching or illegal trafficking. And if you love biology and if you're into crime solving, true crime, but you also want to work with wildlife, this could be your dream job. I mean, it's so niche, but I think it's one of those jobs that's like so interesting. And for me, I'm a true crime lover and watcher. I think it's just so fascinating that people really go out into the field and find evidence of these crimes like poaching and illegal trafficking. And they genuinely help reduce those levels of poaching and illegal wildlife trading and protect these animals that are so valuable not only to the ecosystems but also just to existence here on Earth. They're intrinsically valuable. And so one of the things that's interesting about wildlife forensic science is while I was here in Nepal, they actually hosted a wildlife crime workshop, and they had some people come in from the US. I forgot what agency they're from, but they basically facilitated a whole workshop where every single room in the office was a different crime scene, and they had the caution tape up and everything, and they were teaching everybody how to look for footprints, look for evidence, collect evidence, submit evidence, all the things in between. And if that's something that's interesting to you, I highly recommend trying to look into how you can pursue such a field. I think it's definitely you want to go to grad school and you definitely want to get a background in forensics, and from there it's kind of getting your way into it. So from moving on from wildlife forensics, I wanted to talk about a conservation geneticist as well. So that's another career that I feel like a lot of people don't acknowledge within conservation. So conservation geneticists use DNA to understand animal populations and help endangered species survive. So it's a mix of lab work and also field work. So sometimes you're out in the field collecting eDNA, which is environmental DNA for some sort of elusive species. Maybe it's a seal that you don't get to really see very often. So you go out onto the boat and you collect water samples that may have fecal matter in it and evidence that this animal does live within these waters. And they use that DNA to help, boost conservation initiatives, not only policy, but also management, to protect the range of these elusive species and these endangered species. So a very critical position within conservation, and I think it's not really acknowledged enough. So if you're interested in genetics, biology, but also want to have a little bit of field work in there, conservation geneticist is a good one to kind of research and understand. And next is an environmental educator. So this one's a little bit more generalized, but I thought I'd include it on here because I think it's not really talked about enough that you can become an educator, and it's like a valid career opportunity within conservation. It's not like a side project. There are people whose full-time job it is to educate people on about the environment, climate change, and wildlife science. So there are positions as an environmental educator within zoos, within governmental organizations, within schools. And if you're someone who enjoys tutoring people, like just teaching in general, explaining things, kind of being a communicator that bridges science and this like complex theory within science to a generalized audience. If you feel like you're more of a generalist, that education sphere is so valuable, and there's a lot of opportunities out there. So I encourage y'all to go and try and see what you like within certain fields that we've been talking about throughout this episode or this video. And next, I also wanted to talk about a wildlife policy analyst. So these people within this career analyze laws and policies to protect wildlife habitats. So if you're interested in politics and science, this career kind of combines the two and will help you create a change that is not so based in, spreading awareness, but like genuine, like policy impact. I think it's really rewarding to be involved in policy work. And so as a wildlife policy analyst, you can potentially be on the front lines of that policy work, and it's really valuable within this field, because what makes the most change is our policy, and everything else flows beneath that. So if you really are interested in politics and policy, I would really encourage y'all to check out this field. And next, I wanted to talk about some technology-based conservation jobs. So this career is called a conservation drone operator. So these people use drones to monitor wildlife populations and habitats. So it's very tech savvy, it's very hands-on, and you can reach places that humans can't. And one of the ways that you can, be a drone operator in the field, one of the guest speakers while I was teaching conservation in action at UC Berkeley was a Arctic scientist. So he would go to Antarctica and study penguins in the context of climate change. And he used to talk about the drone operators that would be down there in Antarctica with him, and whose job it was to just solely operate these drones and get the proper footage needed to count penguins and estimate their population based off of that data. And that's just such an incredibly interesting field to me, and the fact that you can just be in such a cool place like that and be technology based is so cool. And so if you're interested in tech, if you're interested in science and want to do field work like that, there are opportunities like that out there, and you shouldn't sell yourself short, and know that there are ways to get involved with wildlife science even if you're more interested in tech. So again, that's another really interesting one. And I know we talked about wildlife forensics earlier, but I did want to circle back and kind of talk about a wildlife crime investigator, because their job is slightly different. So as an investigator, you're working with law enforcement to catch poachers and traffickers. So instead of the wildlife forensic scientists that are kind of analyzing the evidence at the crime scene, the investigator is actually directly working with law enforcement to catch the people who have poached these animals or are trafficking these animals into the pet trade or other like traditional medicine, opportunities or rings. So it's a high stakes job that combines field work and investigation. So again, if you're a true crime fan, this is another way to get involved that is still helping out wildlife and still involved in that environmental protection that I feel like so many of us, like the younger generation, are so like fond of and so excited about. So yeah, another great opportunity for people who are involved or want to be involved in forensics and crime and investigation. It's a great opportunity there. And then the next job I wanted to talk about is habitat restoration specialist. So these folks bring damaged ecosystems back to life. They are planting trees, they're restoring wetlands, they're out there in the field really getting hands-on and, working with the actual environment and like doing a lot of field work. So these jobs are a little bit, more labor intensive, you might say, but you're actually in like outdoors all day. And so if you're the type of person who really loves to just live outdoors and like touch, really be surrounded by nature and actually like be hands-on and touch the plants that you're moving, see the impact in real life that you're making, a habitat restoration specialist could be a really good career for you. And I think they're one of the more like appreciated jobs within these like this list that I've been going throughout this video, because a lot of people rely on conservation like specialists like this, habitat restoration specialists, because they are the ones that are on the ground really doing the work. So amazing job for them. And amazing job for anybody who's really wanting to like be hands-on in field work outside. And next, I wanted to talk about a human wildlife conflict mitigator. So this is kind of similar to what I'm doing right now, but these human wildlife conflict mitigators are usually helping communities and wildlife coexist peacefully. So that might entail preventing elephants from raiding crops. It's kind of part science, part diplomacy. And for me, that is the most interesting thing in the world, just helping people deal with living near wildlife. Because, as much as it is important to save these wild species and this wildlife for the health and future of our ecosystems, it is also important to recognize that humans have needs too, and our conservation efforts can't be put prioritized to the detriment of local people who have to deal with this wildlife every single day. So I think it's really interesting to mitigate these strategies between wildlife professionals and people who live around national parks or around wildlife sanctuaries that or like not necessarily sanctuaries but wildlife reserves, and kind of talk through the complexity and the nuances of dealing with both sides. So if that is something that you're interested in, I'm definitely interested in it, and you should subscribe, by the way. All of you guys should subscribe, but if you're really interested in that, definitely subscribe, because I talk about human-wildlife coexistence and conflict mitigation strategies a lot on this channel, so yeah. Next, I wanted to talk about a wildlife documentary producer. So these guys are really interesting. I love documentary filmmaking, and I grew up on nature documentaries. This is partially why I am in this field today. I mean, documentaries are such a creative outlet and opportunity to get people excited about conservation. So people who are in the documentary field are so inspiring to me, but also specifically a documentary producer creates films that tell powerful stories about animals and conservation. And especially if you love media and connecting media and creativity to nature and science, this is a job for you. And whether you want to be a filmmaker or a producer or a researcher or anyone in between, there are so many niche jobs within the documentary sphere that I think it's really important to kind of highlight those. So next, finally, the last career I was going to talk about today is a conservation social scientist. So what this career entails is studying human behavior and how it affects conservation. So if you're into like psychology and anthropology, this might be something that you're more geared towards. They design a lot of programs that help people and wildlife thrive together. So a conservation conflict mitigator might work with a conservation social scientist to create research that proves, that certain methods are most helpful for, for communities that live near wildlife and such. So if you're interested in that as well, please let me know in the comments. If you're interested in any of these careers that I was talking about today, let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe to this video and channel, and check out my other videos. I got a ton of videos out on undergraduate research, early career professional advice, and I also have a ton of podcast episodes actually about wildlife science and wildlife news. So if you're interested in any of that whatsoever, please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and it was helpful for you guys. And I'm coming out with a new video soon about like a personality quiz based conservation career methodology, I guess you could say. And so if you subscribe, you'll be seeing that one soon too. So yeah, that's all for today's video, but I just want to say thank you guys for watching, and I hope I get to see you guys soon on another video. So thank you, bye bye.